we've interviewed chief people officers, CHROs, chief security officers, chief technology officers. And in fact, I just recently, that chief security officer was on the podcast and he said, Steve, when I come into a company, my number one priority, the very first thing I do is assess the culture of my team. It's just the number one thing I do. And we spent an entire podcast explaining why. But there's a C-suite executive that his number one priority. And you wouldn't expect that from somebody that's a C-suite technology person typically, but it underscores what you're talking about here. It underscores how this isn't something that's nice to work on. It's something that's vital to work on, that should be in its rightful place, connected, direct line, not even dotted circuitous path, directly connected to, like you said, profits, revenue, growth, contribution to that. So I'm going to ask you now from the dark side of the force. If I were to take away every positive aspect that you've been talking about a company culture, what would happen? Take us through that story. Like, what does that do to an organization?
I'll actually use Kmart as an example because they're not really around anymore, so I can do that. They actually went down because they felt the pressures too much. That culture dropped. It was more about how do we maintain the doors open kind of situation. And with that, the employees, I know this from personal experience being out in the field with everybody, they were feeling the culture disappearing and the culture disappearing. So people were leaving and people weren't caring and theft went up, loss prevention went out the window because people didn't care. And I'm not going to say culture was the downfall of Kmart. There were many other things that took the place of that. But that also, because things were happening, culture just went out the window. It wasn't important anymore. And you could see it in all the actions and behaviors that were going on and that people didn't want to support. And people were very upset about what was happening to the organization that they knew and loved at some point was no longer there.